A recent internal investigation into the funding provided to the T&T Cricket Board, TTCB, by the sports company of T&T Limited, Sport TT, discovered that the funding was 109% over initial budgets. The board received $14.8 million more than its original allocations between 2019 and 2023. The TTCB was at first allocated $13.4 million, but eventually received $28.2 million in taxpayers' money. $4.8 million was allocated to the TTCB in 2022, but the TTCB got $11.5 million, $6.7 million more. In 2023, the budget was $2.33 million. The Cricket Board collected $11.7 million, $9.3 million more. Guardian Media Sport compared the actual expenditures listed in the audit investigation to the figures reported by Sport TT in its submitted financial audits for 2021 and 2022. The numbers did not match. It's important to note, however, that audited financial statements are based on fiscal years, which run from October 1st to September 30th of the following year. The 2022 Sport TT audit stated that $9.3 million was given in funding to cricket in fiscal 2022. The TTCB alone received $11.7 million in calendar 2022. As confirmed by TTCB sources, Sport TT on occasion also funds zonal cricket associations directly, as some associations don't receive money from the board. The 2021 Sport TT audit said $1.78 million was given to cricket in fiscal 2020. The TTCB alone received $4.49 million in calendar 2020. Sport TT's 2025 investigation came 7 years after PricewaterhouseCoopers delivered a forensic investigative report. The Audit Committee's investigation found that there were differences in the amount of money listed by the TTCB on invoices compared to the amounts of money it listed for the same event on supporting documents like checks and vouchers. Due to the untimely reconciliation process, SDU Sports Development Unit is not able to assess whether the NGB has a refund remit to Sport TT. Reconciliations are not reconciled where the funds dispersed to TTCB versus the actual spend, nor are information such as attendance to events versus request, meals and airfare versus request, and actual invoices versus request reconciled, the report stated. Specific occurrences were flagged in 2020, 2021, and 2023. Guardian Media examines a few. 2020, the TTCB received $298,500 to support the development of women's cricket. The investigation found that there was no evidence of payments made to the clubs by TTCB. Sport TT gave the TTCB $153,000 for operational costs. More than $131,400 was unaccounted for. It was reported that only supports documents for $21,585 were seen in 2021. The board got $201,000 for preparations for the region's one-day cricket competition, the CG Insurance Super 50 Cup. The report found that there was no evidence of verification and approval of invoices by the TTCB and no evidence of payment information seen, check, payment vouchers, receipts from customers, ACH. Despite collecting $81,000 for the airfare and accommodation of a trainer and masseuse, there was no payment or invoice seen. 2023. Due to the absence of supporting documents, no reconciliations, the process of verifying that two sets of records agree, were able to determine how $776,000 was spent. Regional 4-day tournament preparations, $321,450. An under-13 trip to Guyana, $51,822. A September Cricket Academy, $184,800. National under-15, under-17, and under-19 teams. Team preparation, $218,625. The only invoices submitted by TTCB were for reimbursement. One invoice was $50,000 for fruits from a vendor. No other details were provided in the invoice, not even the type of fruit purchased. Guardian Media Sports obtained a copy of the investigation's findings. In a signed letter dated March 13, 2025, the head of Sport TT's Internal Audit Committee wrote to Sport TT Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Jason Williams, explaining what was unearthed. According to the letter, in December 2023, Sport TT's Board of Directors requested an audit of the expenditure approved by Sport TT for the TTCB. The review was approved in January 2024 by the Internal Audit Subcommittee. As part of the investigation, the Internal Audit Committee obtained all payment packages and reviewed all of NGB's funding from Sport TT to TTCB for the period 2019 to 2023. It also reviewed all relevant supporting documentation to support reconciliation for funding provided. The objectives were to assess whether supporting documents provided to Sport TT by TTCB as supporting documents evidence for funding provided, to determine whether the reconciliation process for funding provided to TTCB was adhered to, aligned with Sport TT NGB funding policy, and to identify any weaknesses or gaps in the process for funding provide Sport TT to TTCB. Sport TT, there was no over-budgeting. In a written response, the Communications Department of Sport TT denied that there was over-budgeting of funds for the TTCB. According to the government agency, the TTCB remains eligible for funding, subject to an approval process and the availability of funds. Asked to comment specifically on the findings of the Audit Committee's investigative report, Sport TT said it strives to maintain good corporate governance principles and best practices. It said following the concerns raised in the investigative report, Sport TT conducts regular audits to identify any gaps in its processes and controls, with recommendations implemented accordingly and monitored by the Internal Audit Department. It sought to explain the process for obtaining funding. A request for funding must be submitted at least 3 months prior to the event or activity in question, along with supporting documents. Sport TT also employs a compliance matrix to determine the compliance of NGBs with Sport TT prerequisites for funding. NGBs must submit the following documents to be considered compliant and be considered for funding: strategic plan, development plan, operational plan, audited financials, AGM minutes, calendar of events, the organization's constitution and incorporation status and NPO, non-profit organization, registration certificate, it said. According to Sport TT, the request is first reviewed by the Sports Development Unit and recommendations are made to the Finance Subcommittee. Any funding approved by the subcommittee must then obtain approval from the Sport TT Board of Directors before submission to the Ministry of Sport for ultimate approval. Once approved at the ministry level, funding is disbursed to Sport TT for payment to the NGB. Funding is disbursed provided the NGB is compliant with respect to its reporting of expenditure by providing annual current audited financial statements. Consideration is also given based on the priority level of the event, Sport TT wrote. According to the government agency, it also provides funding for major sporting events hosted in TNT. In 2022 and 2023, Sport TT said it supported hosting of the following cricket events: ICC Under-19 Cricket World Cup 2022, the 14th of January to the 6th of February 2022. West Indies versus India Bilateral Cricket Series, July 22nd to 29, 2022. Caribbean Premier League 2023. West Indies versus India, July 20th to 24 and August 1st to 3, 2023. Basarath, we are not aware of report box. Meanwhile, TTCB President Basarath told Guardian Sports that the board is not aware that an audit report was done by Sport TT. Such a report has not been shared with TTCB and has not been made available to us. These issues you are referring to have never been communicated to the board, and the TTCB has not been given the opportunity of a management response to any audit report from the Sport TT company. As far as I know, we have accounted for every cent received from those organizations, he said. The 2018 Sport TT investigation. In 2018, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, delivered a report called Project Barcelona. It was a forensic investigation into procurement, contracting, and expenditure irregularities at Sport TT. The investigators spoke with whistleblowers who handed them alleged recorded meetings and conversations between former Sport TT Director Imran Jan and external parties, including TTCB President Basarath and former TTCB CEO Suruj Raghunath. Jan appeared to have shared details regarding Sport TT funding to TTCB and other national sporting bodies with Azim Basarath, and appeared to have been attempting to influence the provision of Sport TT funding to TTCB. Jan appeared to be communicating his progress or lack thereof, with seeking to solicit funding to TTCB to Basarath. We also noted Jan attempted to approve payments to TTCB by signing approval documents on 3 separate occasions in September 2017 for amounts that exceeded his approval limit as a member of the Finance Committee of the Board. These payments were ceased as a breach of policy, as approval by the chairman was required under Sport TT's delegated financial authority. The payment vouchers indicate the payments related to requests for coverage of TTCB administrative expenses for January, February, and March 2017 in amounts that range from approx $134,000 to $146,000, the report stated. PwC's investigation also revealed that Jan was appointed as a national cricket coach after text messages were shared between him and Basarath, suggesting the appointment was a reward for influencing funding. We noted reference was made by Azim Basarath to moving Jan to the front of the line in a prior July 2017 text message to Jan. These messages suggest a conflict of interest as Jan was appointed as a national cricket coach by TTCB while he was a board member of Sport TT. And Sport TT is a governing body regarding all national sporting bodies, including TTCB, the report read. Last Monday, Basarath was asked about the PwC investigation during an interview with I-95 FM. I can't recall that. That is over 8 years now. Can you remember speaking to somebody in 2020? I don't remember the time, but we would have spoken to Imran Jan. We always talked about cricket and the development of cricket, the passion we had for cricket. We could have talked about different things, but that's not true. I don't remember him giving me any information, he said. Sport TT's mandate is to construct and upgrade recreating grounds for community-level sport and physical activity, to promote the concept of sport for all, to provide oversight, financial and technical support to the management of 15 national governing bodies, including the TTCB, and the enhancement of the medal potential for T&T athletes. Background. On May 8th, the Police Service Special Investigation Unit, SIU, raided the TTCB's offices in Balmain, Couva. In late 2023, whistleblower and former TTCB treasurer Kiswa Chaitu reported to police that at least $500,000 was missing, unaccounted for from the TTCB's financial accounts, according to the findings of an audit. A female staff member wrote a resignation letter admitting to misappropriating funds. Chaitu was then removed in a successful no-confidence motion. The TTCB then passed a motion banning any member who lost a no-confidence motion for a decade from contesting elections. Over the last few years, several corporate sponsors have paused or withdrawn support from TTCB competitions because of concerns expressed by audits. An NGC audit found that the sponsorship funds were transferred by the TTCB without approval. The report also discovered that false information was provided by the TTCB in its financial statements for 2014 and 2015, including duplicate reporting of funds. According to Guardian Media Sports investigations, since 2014, the TTCB received more than $100 million in funding for the board and T&T Red Force, which it manages, from Sport TT, Cricket West Indies, and the Office of the Prime Minister's Sport and Culture Fund, OPMSCF. More than $53 million was in state funding. According to Freedom of Information Act request documents, the OPMSCF provided $2.8 million in funding to the TTCB between 2019 and 2022. TTCB sources estimated that another $1.8 million was provided in 2023 and 2024. As mentioned earlier in the report, between 2019 and 2023, the Cricket Board collected $28 million from Sport TT. Between 2021 and 2024, Cricket West Indies, CWI, allocated $29 million to the TTCB. However, Guardian Media Sports investigations discovered that the TTCB has over 15 audits outstanding for the CWI. According to the TTCB sources, the budgets submitted for the outstanding audits are worth around $20 million. Basarath denied being behind in any audits during a radio interview on I95.5 FM on May 16, 2025. The TTCB obtained another $25 million from the CWI for Red Force T&T Limited. Red Force Limited is a private company formed by the TTCB in 2014 as part of the revamping of the Regional 4-Day Competition and the Regional Super 50 Competition. TTCB sources called for a forensic investigation into the Red Force's and TTCB's finances, citing concerns about the business relationship. They were particularly concerned about a $4.8 million management fee paid by Red Force to the TTCB in fiscal 2024. On May 18th, during the board's quarterly annual general meeting, the TTCB updated its code of conduct, giving the executive increased disciplinary power. The updated codes give the executive sole power to determine whether a complaint is serious enough to be referred for an internal investigation, to determine who sits on disciplinary committees, and to decide what action is taken, if any, against an alleged wrongdoer.